Well, it's the alphabet soup Presidente edition of 900 seconds because Jen Flynn Oldenburg has always gone by JFO for the last few years. Mac Pedraza started that, I believe, and then it just caught on. And Kirsten Bernthal Booth is just familiarly known as KBB. Hi, guys.
How's it going?
Hello.
Kirsten, you were the AVCA president, and you have to be a college coach to keep that job. And so when you left Creighton, Jen got moved up the food chain. What were you anticipating as the biggest challenges for you at the time? And then what have you told her?
Well, the AVCA just got better with Jen at the helm, so that's a good thing. Um, I think the obvious is the House settlement, rev share. I mean, it is such. I mean, what a transitional time in college athletics, especially at the Division I level. So, the amazing thing, and Jen knows this about the AVCA, is we are really lucky as a coaching body to have an infrastructure in place that we support. Jen's going to support, and she'll be able to use her voice. But Jamie Gordon, Jason Jones, so many of those people at the AVCA really lead that charge. I mean, Jamie is, lobbying Congress right now. He's working with the other sporting bodies to really protect the Olympic sports. I mean, Jen and I are both in Division I women's, but we're really concerned about men's volleyball right now, particularly at the Division I level. We're anticipating seeing sports being cut, and then beach volleyball we're worried about. So I think those are some big things that we have to work together to make sure. And I think Congress is starting to understand this is, with all these changes, we don't want to see Olympic sports, and we're not just talking volleyball. I mean, we are talking swimming and tennis and all these sports. We don't want to see these things cut. So that's a big one. I think the recruiting calendar, one of my big goals was to get that adjusted with not the dates that we can recruit, but how we communicate to athletes. I think it's really messed up, and it's not good for the athletes right now. Didn't get that done because we went into a moratorium. I know there's a lot of coaches, top level coaches, that would like that changed. And then I really think on the club space, there is a large group of people on different, from the club directors to the parents to the kids to the college coaches, that think our kids are playing too long, and seeing if we can condense that season a little bit, because between club and high school, a lot of our kids are not getting rest. And when they arrive to Jen at Ohio State, but pick all your programs from Division I to junior college to all the different levels, a lot of them are broken already, and so you're trying to manage them. So I think we need to, we are the voices to help protect these younger kids, because they want to play all the time, and rest is really important.
Jen, we can go home now because Kirsten pretty much covered everything.
Yeah.
By the way, Jen's shirt, it just says is for the Ohio State University. But all of the things she touched on, but then you also, as the coach of your program, which is the primary thing for you at this point, now you're going into an era where you openly will pay players.
Right.
That in itself both intrigues me, worries me, all the above. And it
Yeah,
has
I would agree. I would absolutely agree with that. And I think this is a interesting time to take over as president. I think when Kirsten announced that she was stepping away, I was worried that something was wrong, but the next thought was, oh no. I think my presidency is going to start a little sooner. So it was like, what's going to happen? But I think in a world where there's a lot of uncertainty, except for the fact that some schools are going to be able to play their players directly. I'm still going to lead the charge that Kirsten started. I'm on board with all those things that she just spoke about, and I think there's things that need to change to align with more of what's good for our sport, what's good for the athletes inside of the sport, as well as the coaches.
Well, both of you have the perspective of not only being highly successful coaches at your level within women's volleyball, but you both have kids who, Kirsten, yours are a little bit older and have played high level volleyball and are playing high level volleyball. And Jen, mini me, as I call her, who looks just like her, she's gonna be a coach, and you're in tune with that side of things that Kirsten was just talking about.
Yeah, season's way too long. And I think for all ages, young kids, yes. I mean, they're so little, like they should be playing other sports, in my opinion. But the older players as well. I mean, I think the recovery and rest is something we preach to our athletes on our campus, and they don't have those opportunities, like Kirsten mentioned. Like there's no natural break. If you do take one, then it's held against you in some way, whether it's at the high school level, club level, or so some colleges that you're not at my camp, I'm not going to recruit you. Like that's not fair to these kids to have to make that choice.
Yeah, now if you're a good high school player now, like for example, a girls' high school player, you start in early August, the season ends around mid-November. That's the one time where you might get a month off before club practice starts. And then if you're on a good team that plays in nationals, you're pushing right up into July. So at the most, you're talking about, 6, 7, 8 weeks off the whole year.
Yeah.
And that just
Now,
and it doesn't work that way because kids go to camps and they keep doing other things as well.
and there's open gym and there's different workouts for high school that they don't want to miss because they don't want to be that player, or it's just very complicated. The calendar's not set up for rest and recovery as it should be.
Yeah, well, I wasn't planning on going that direction, but I'm glad we covered it. But Kirsten, before you left for Love, and we're still a college coach, and you were in this job as the president of the AVCA. What were you thinking, like the immediate things that you had to do or that you were involved in? Because you left before the House settlement too. You got out just in the nick of time.
I think, the things that concerned me from a big picture presidency seat were the cutting of sports. So I think that's been my biggest concern. We've made so many strides, both especially on the beach side. I mean, that sport has been growing and growing. And even on the men's side, especially lower levels, is growing. And so, I mean, of all things that maybe kept me up night from wearing that hat, that probably was the biggest. Now, from a Division I perspective, that there may have been some other things, but from a presidency hat, trying to look at all of our constituents, that's probably the biggest thing.
Jen, you are an example of all sides of the things that can happen to a program, and what I mean by that is, you're in the Big Ten, but you're down below that very top tier, and in that big pack of the next group. You've had players transferred in, you've had players transfer out, and now your money is, I don't know how I would say it, middle of the pack as well, that you can pay the athletes. And those are if you can address some of those challenges and the things that, like she said, keeps you awake at night.
Yeah, I mean, it's how do you manage money? How do you tell a player what they're worth? The value of that is daunting and scary, and the pressure that then is placed upon those athletes that are making more than others. What if they have an off night? What if they have an off month? What if just something goes wrong? Like, how do you manage the locker room? And I think that's something that we're all dealing with, in a sense of how do you maintain culture while paying athletes? Like, how do you fight for that? How do you keep that on the forefront of your brain? And that's the direction we're going, is just how strong can we build our culture and make sure kids want to be here regardless of what money's out there, whether it's in our own program or what's being thrown around at other programs, other places, and just make us stronger. And it goes back to training. It's about treating kids the right way, and making sure their experience is one that they don't want to leave.
But neither one of you signed up to be pro coaches. And of course, Kirsten, you've left to go to the pro league, but not as a coach. But it's pure pro there, and it's you get paid and you're paid to perform. But now, Jen, you're a coach of, I assume almost every player on your roster will get some kind of benefits, and you're a pro coach.
Yeah. Without the guidelines of pro. Like that's the scary part. Like there's more guidelines, there's more rules, there's more transparency in the pro side than there are in the college game. And that part is a little bit scary.
Mm. What about recruiting? And how does all this, like especially the House settlement and all the things we're talking about, affect recruiting? And Kirsten, you certainly are not that far enough removed from recruiting that you can't talk about it too.
Yeah, I was just talking to a coach today, asking, because June 15th is going to be, I'm sure Jen doesn't know the answer to how our coach is going to approach this, because we just signed the House settlement. It will not be in effect on July 1. So our people, I mean, I've heard things like people might be able to sign with the collective prior to that, even though they haven't even signed to go to a school. I mean, compliance offices are all over the place. Do you make a rev share offer to a kid that's 2 years out when you don't even know what kind of money? I mean, there's just, I mean, I don't
Well,
envy my coaching peers.
I hadn't even thought about that. I mean, you're gonna have kids say like who's a junior, and I know volleyball coaches have told me that they have in the recruiting process, the first question that some kids or their families have asked, not about the academics or the athletics or am I going to play, but how much money are you going to pay me? And you have to broach that subject with kids who are like juniors.
Yes.
Oh my.
Well, and I also think it's important. It's not the kids' fault. This is the
No.
system, and it is transformational money for some of these kids. And if you are coming from a family that maybe you've put all your money into volleyball and it's a struggle, we all make decisions professionally. You know, you move because you get a $50,000 raise, whatever. This money it's not $3,000 anymore. I mean, for some people it is life-changing money. So I always say we cannot blame the athletes for asking those questions, because we all do this professionally too. It's the system right now, and it's not the athlete's fault.
I agree with that. Big time. Yeah. So how are we handling recruiting? I think we're all handling it differently. I mean, you talk to any coach, and I think we're all trying to figure out who's going to offer the money, how much is going to be offered, you know, those type of questions, so that we're prepared when a player comes to us or a family comes to us and says, this school is offering us money, what can you offer? Or how do you combat that? You know, if you're not in that upper echelon of top money, are there ways to combat that? If you're getting zero revenue share dollars, because there's many schools that are not in that boat, you know, what is their pitch, so to speak? You know, what are they gonna bring to the table? And so I think June 15th, I think every June 15th that I've had, and so I think about my first year was the year of COVID. So I wasn't out on the road recruiting except for like maybe 6 days. And when we go into our first phase, it was the first year that June 15th was even a thing.
And let me stop you there for just a second. June 15th,
Okay,
for
awesome.
people who are watching, can you just explain why it's so significant?
It's the first time we're able to talk to rising juniors. So it's the start of, quote unquote, the start of their process where they're able to have communication with college coaches and programs. So it is a big deal. And it's a big burst of energy on that one day, and it's crazy. It's turned into something that's it's exciting, of course, but there's a lot of anxiety, and there's nerves and just unknown. And am I going to get a call, or what is this call going to be like? I mean, it's the first time, it's your first impression on both sides of it, and so it is a big day. And coming into it, so you know, I think every June 15th since, something new has happened, whether it was NIL, or there's a transfer portal, or I mean, each one has led to something else. I mean, last year, this time they were talking about the settlement. And so I think settlement, increase of scholarships, that was something as part of the 2026 cycle. And so how do we manage that? What does that look like? No one really knew. Now we're a year later, there's still a lot of unknowns. Yes, maybe we might have a roster size limit. I think we're aware of that. Some of us have some rev share dollars that we're able to spend. But what does the NIL space look like? Now it has to go through a third party with the NIL Go with Deloitte, and you know, those deals that maybe went through in the past aren't going to go through again. And so there's all these new nuances that we're dealing with every single year. That's like something new. What does June 15th look like? Yeah, it looks like a mess, but it's exciting, and you get to talk to players, and I'm excited to at least have the opportunity to get to know them.
Of all things that I think a year from now, as Jen talks about, it changes every year. The piece that she hit on the NIL and through Deloitte as they evaluate NIL deals, that's my biggest question mark, because you talk to people that are like, hey, this is going to clean it up. And then you talk to someone else in the same conference and they'll be like, no way, it's not going to hold up at all. So those are going to be interesting questions.
I mean, there's so many worms out of a can. Like, I think we're trying to stuff some back in, and I don't see that happening as much as we want it to be. Or maybe some of us maybe want it, all the worms out, and let's go for it. But I think there's the time for guardrails was before, and now we're trying to put them in, and we'll see if they stay in place.
Jen, specifically about roster limitations, do you know exactly what that's going to entail for you? Like it's your program right now?
18, that's 18 is the limit for women's volleyball. I think that's pretty consistent across the country when you're talking to different staffs. So we're in a space where on the women's side, it's nice to be there because you're going to have that the top limit. I think Kirsten's point about worried about men's volleyball, I think that's a big concern for all of us, and some of their rosters in Division One are might be getting cut because of Title IX. Not so much the roster limits that the NCAA is coming up with, but just in terms of universities and what they're able to allow based on Title IX numbers. And so if your female population is higher, then you need more female athletes. And there's a lot of universities out there that aren't complying with that. And so men's rosters are getting cut even more. And
Fine.
not just men's volleyball, it's a lot of the Olympic sports. Those
Right.
rosters are being cut.
The 900 seconds guideline is completely blown, but that's okay. This is good. But so as the ABCA president and as the past one and talking to coaches, let me set this up. So you get into coaching no matter what it is, as a club coach, as a high school coach, and you matriculate and you get into positions like the two of you, like Kirsten, what you had at Creighton and what you have at Ohio State, where you're highly paid and you've got teams that can challenge for a national championship. But I don't think anybody gets in it thinking, oh, one day I'll make tons and tons of money, or one day I'll win a national championship. But the other side of that is that within Division One right now in the Power Four conferences, more than half the teams in all four of those conferences cannot win the national championship. And for roughly 280 other teams out there that we're talking about in the other leagues, they can only do as best as they can do, but they can't ever win the national championship, and they can't command the kind of money that those other teams that can win the national championship can command and dish out. What do you tell those coaches, and philosophically, professionally, from a rewarding sense?
Go ahead.
Well, there's a couple thoughts that came to mind as you talk about this. First of all, I used to think if you were picking a school, you wanted to pick a school. If you're in a P4, I'm talking right now, you wanted to pick a school where everyone was good. You rising tides thing. I actually don't think that's the case now. You actually want to be one of a few good sports so that you get more of a percentage of rev share, which is kind of sad to say that. The other thing, when you talk about the mid-major, the rest, right?
Your daughter plays at a mid-major.
My daughter plays at a mid-major, and I have another one going to play at a mid-major. And in argument wise, I was coaching at a mid-major, if you want to call it that. So, but I actually wouldn't be surprised those schools become junior college type programs. So for instance, if I'm a mid-major coach, I say to Jen, I know you can only pick up 18 kids. That player, that's great athlete that you maybe can't pick up at this point, send her to me and I will let you go get her in a year. And I'm not going to try to keep her because all of a sudden maybe Jen has money that I don't have. So now I can tell this kid, don't go sit the bench at this program for $50,000. Come play for me and your stock is going to go up, and then try to help play. So that's how I think I would try to, maybe I'm not even partnering with the institution, but I'm saying to these kids, don't go sit on the bench, come play for me. And now go. And then if you want to go into the portal, then you're going to have a shot for the bigger money rather than sitting on the bench at a P4. That's how I think I'd approach it.
That makes sense. I mean, and I think with the portal rules as they are right now, where unlimited transfers, you can continue to increase your stock. I think that's just, the reality of it right now is that I think a lot of coaches are more willing to put their resources, their time, their investment into proven players, not high school players. And that's sad. I think that's a sad part for me, because I think that I still believe in the development of athletes as people, as volleyball players, but there are a lot of programs that rely on the portal saying, hey, she had a great season at this school. Let's bring her here. She's going to take off. And so I think there's different ways that you can look at it depending on what school you're at.
A really good point, Jen, because I think I was talking to a big time coach, and his comment was, I'm going after my number ones. And if I don't get my number ones, I'm out. So, I mean, that could affect June 15th, right? Because then, because his comment was, I'll just go to the portal at that point.
Yeah. It's crazy. Just
It
changed.
is so different than where
So
we were a
fast.
couple of years ago.
Yeah.
You guys are great. JFO and KBB have always been two of my favorites, and I love talking to them. And I think that all the coaches and volleyball people who have watched this really appreciate it. The next time we get together, let's throw out this the first subject. What's it like to be a coach in college now and have kids being paid more than you? But I won't make you go there now. I thank you both. And
Not
if-
an issue for me. I think Jen's daughter is going to have that issue.
Yeah. I mean, in ways, let's hope that she's good enough, but other ways, yeah, I don't need her getting a big head.
Well, I'm going to raise both of your salaries. In fact, I'll double it for this this Zoom. Thanks, guys. And if you've
Lee,
watched this long, please subscribe to 900 Square Feet, the daily email. Thank you both.
thank you, Lee, for all you do.
Yeah. Thanks, Lee.